another edition of Grown Folks Business. It's a beautiful Thursday.
Can I tell you, it's still, to Andre's point, Jay Dwayne's point, it's still so prevalent. And I know I'm tired. I can't imagine what you guys are like being in that skin and like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
And wholeness. I want to live a life without any lack. And that's my ultimate desire. And it's really about inventory, if you will.
Whatnot. And you get really busy and you get on a train track that just carries you through a number of years.
We shared with mom and family that, we won't be there. We won't be home every Christmas. With birthdays that we'll celebrate. We'll call, we'll celebrate, but it might not be on that day.
All right. Look, this is Reunion Thursday. I'm so glad to be here and share this space with some very, very familiar faces and some wonderful, awesome people that I know personally and just in the grown folks business space. So let me just say before I talk about what tonight's topic is, welcome back to Jay Dwayne, Bob, Lisa, Ajane, and Celeste. I'm so glad to be here to share the time and to have what I know is going to be a great conversation, because they all are. You guys bat 1,000 in this space, and I'm grateful to be the pitcher, the one that's throwing those fastballs right across the plate for you guys to hit these home runs. So tonight's topic is, it's one that we seem to visit somewhat often in this space, and it's probably because it's something that's near and dear to what I pay attention to and to how I believe society can do better. Media, that media thing. So we're back there again. Mascots of shame. Where has the Black image been, and where is it going? I don't know if some of you are familiar, but we have a so-called reboot of Good Times on the horizon. That's already got plenty of bashing on social media. This show was on my mind ever since I saw that trailer for the show, which I think comes out in a week or two. But it's about more than that. So I'm not trying to jump on the coattails of bashing that show. I probably bashed that show before that the show was an idea, because this has been something I paid attention to for so long. So with everything that we witness in regards to depictions of Black people, Black Americans primarily in media, I keep having to circle back to this. And the Good Times reboot is just another example of the deficiencies that exist in terms of the care and the opportunity to do something magnificent with the Black image for society, do something positive. So with all of that being said, I'll begin with the first question, and I'll kind of kick it off, because when I say mascots of shame, it is not something I want to say as a crystal clear thing, but it is something that we can acknowledge exists in terms of the depictions that Black Americans have had to deal with and endure in media, primarily television and film. So where has the Black image been, and where is it going? What's going on, Rebecca? Good to see you. Hey there. So where has it been? Think about it in terms of the shows that I recall, not just from my childhood. Good Times is kind of before I had a memory, and then it was still on for a while. The Jeffersons, of course, the Cosby Show, What's Happening. You get to the 90s, you get Martin, you get Living Single. A lot of satire in there, but also you get the opportunities for some drama. The Jeffersons had some weighty episodes, and so did Good Times, of course. Cosby Show, of course. Different World, of course, dealing with issues that I believe further frame and shape the humanity of Black people in those spaces. But where is it going? Because we're at a space and place now where I'm challenging almost everything that comes out. So I'm wondering what you're doing. Going to start with you, Jay Dwayne. Glad to see you first and foremost. And I see a lot of hellos and hays in the chat. So, I'm glad that this energy is not just my own, that you guys are glad to see each other. But Jay, I'm going to start with you, man. Where has the Black image been in your mind, and where is it going right now?
Well, this is tough for me because I'm an actor. So when you start talking about this, I feel like when we talk about the image of Black America, I'm gonna just stick with America right now, and the Black experience. It has had its ebbs and flows of positivity, negativity, caricature at times. More specifically, when you talk about the good times situation, good times was problematic even within its era, and problematic throughout because of the different nuances. Not necessarily, can we say it was a masterpiece? It probably was in certain regards, but at the same time, it was problematic as we talk about the projection of what was then the Martin family that have spillover into the current generation. And so when recreating good times, you also have to understand historical context and cultural relevancy. And I don't think the way that it was going at this time it's just not. It seemed like they were socially unaware of what's going on right now, which wouldn't be a good time to spark that level of creativity and do it in that way. Now, with that being said, where do I think we're going? I do think, because I pay attention to this, there's constant dialogue about um, the intersectionality of the Black experience and the multi-layers of the Black experience. I think now that is being embraced. So some TV shows, in my opinion, may not be something that is beneficial to me or may speak directly to my life, but it may speak to somebody else's life. And I say this is not any shade. Like, I've never seen an episode of Power. I've never seen an episode of Ghost. I don't know if it's a bad show or a good show, but I just know with my life and how things going, that's something I just don't need right now. But I do the same thing with Greenleaf. Um, I don't need those type of episodes in my life. And I think that a lot of us, because life has been so heavy, some of us are moving more to make us laugh. Let's have those type of meaningful interactions. So anything that is too heavy and too weighty, I think right now for a lot of people, they're going to just push away and not even give it time to dissect, because life is a little heavy. And I think we're moving into a direction where a lot of people are looking at the complexities of the Black experience, which is a good thing. And I think we have to be intentional of what we're putting out there. And I'm so grateful that people are speaking about things that are done in poor taste, regardless of who they are and regardless of the connections that it may bring. I think that more people are becoming more aware of that. And I think that's going to influence what we now call entertainment.
Good observations. I greatly appreciate I think you answered the question precisely. And it's a subjective question. So you might find some usefulness and some entertainment value in some of those shows that Jay mentioned that he doesn't. But I do think the complexities are coming to bear. It's just like right in our faces right now that we have to start challenging and questioning some things that are being celebrated and promoted. Kind of like the early 90s with hardcore rap. Bob, coming to you next. What are your thoughts, man? You are someone that has lived through a couple of generations of TV and film. And I mentioned before we came on air that you acknowledged in a discussion you and I had off air, the influences of some of the TV shows that were in your childhood and the importance of the depictions of family life, et cetera, et cetera. So in your opinion, where has the Black image been and where is it going?
Yeah, so I find that a really complex question, and perhaps especially for me, because I was born in 1955, and in the late 50s and in the early 60s was the time of all of these family set idyllic
shows like My Three Sons and Donna Reed and Leave It to Beaver and the Andy Griffith Show, and Opie Taylor and I were about the same age, just to put that in perspective. And so we're seeing all of these shows that depict a life that actually never existed, I don't think, for anybody. I mean, it was a very idealized kind of thing where people were happy and people were comfortable, and people might have had help in the house, and the kids were all good students, and everything was just it was a world that was presented as if this is the way it is, and it wasn't, or it was presented as if this is the way it's supposed to be, and it wasn't, or that this is but it wasn't. And so those of us watching those shows, we're living our lives and watching these shows, and the thing is, we might get to be friends with somebody on the show. We might get to relate. We might relate to somebody that's on the show because they remind us of a relative or somebody like that. But it's, at the same time, it was still myth. It was still, and it is still myth. White people, I don't think, have ever been particularly concerned with how white people are presented by media, because we're presented in all kinds of ways, and we exist in all kinds of ways. And there's a if it's outrageous, it's outrageous, and we look at it as outrageous. If it's realistic, it's realistic, and we look at it as realistic. If it's comedy, it's comedy. If it's drama, it's drama. We just look at all of that sort of thing the way that it is, without consideration of another agenda, because we can, right? And so when we talk about Black portrayal of Black Americans in the media, now we move into more of okay, what's the agenda? What are we trying? What are we? Because we've never really done a good job of just letting the natural experience or the natural world of Black people show up in media. And we have all these exaggerated or all these, hyperinflated kinds of representations. And it does its job, whatever that, not to say there is, not to say the job is defined, but it does its job in doing something in presenting Black people to the public. And is it honest? Is it right? No, but also it's like we have created a world that we have to correct in terms of perception. We've created that world. And so then we need to correct it. Does media do a good job of doing? No, it does not. But what would, and how do we, we keep screwing stuff up, and instead of being able to actually undo it, we just screw it up more. And we make, we talk about this all the time. Black Americans are not a monolith. They're not. So who are we representing? Who are we supposed to represent? And how are we supposed to undo this monolithic perception if we are just presenting all of these different versions that aren't a balanced collection of versions? They're not a well expressed. They play to the biases. They play to the preconceptions more than they do to general life, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think a big portion of what you've been mentioning, Bob, and I want to just get that noticed for everyone, is the normalization. Like who's in control? The nuance is easy. it's depicted all across the board in various ways in terms of what it is to be a human being from the white gaze or white perspective via media, because who's been in control of media, who's been in control of telling stories for the society at large, of encouraging certain behaviors from the citizens in our society. But there's something amiss when it comes to the Black image. Go ahead, you can close your thought out. Get your thought out.
And I'll say this way. I don't see Jay Dwayne on TV. I don't see Felton. I don't see Ajane. I don't see Lisa. That's not who I see when I see Black people on TV shows or in movies. That's not who I see. That's who I know in my life, and others, of course, but I'm just using y'all as examples. Y'all aren't who I see when I see Black people in film and on TV. I see other people, but I don't see y'all. And so I think that's the best way to really kind of say what it is I want to say.
No, that's a great observation. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment. Lisa, coming to you next. What are your thoughts on where the Black image has been and where it's going?
Oh, so here's some of what, to piggyback on what Jay Dwayne said. What I am now noticing is that in our community, in the Black American community, we have a level of ignorance that we're laughing at things that we don't even understand, or perpetuating the stereotypical ideologies of others. And they are creating more issues for us, the minutia for us to keep pushing through. So in thinking about Good Times back in the day, that name is contradictory, because there's nothing good about living in the projects and making your way. No. So, but to laugh at the jokes, and then JJ and him and fighting with his sister, all that, we have no idea of what that is doing when it's imparting upon other people, because this is their framework, especially when they don't have relationships like Bob have with you, with me, Ajane, Jay Dwayne, and Celeste. And it's, unfortunately, what do? It's the chicken or the egg, because the other issue is that we don't have control of media. And then those of us that get opportunities to participate in media, it's like, do you take a stand? Do you insist on something? And if you have no control, they can just replace you with somebody who's not going to have any values. So funny enough, I just finished Cicely Tyson's book. And I was like, wow. So even in my semi-woke state, it's things that she's bringing out. But how many of us are semi-woke or woke? So funny, when you started, I start thinking about a show I was watching last night. I intermittently watch this show called My 600-Pound Life. And last night, Jay, don't laugh at me. I like the show for whatever reason. Maybe it's motivating to me. I don't know. But I have a friend who's a holistic practitioner. I know, Ajane. And she has a nonprofit organization called General Nutrition Services for Minorities. So when I was talking to her last night, she was like, oh, wow, I'm watching My 600-Pound Life, and it's a Black girl on there. It's not a lot of Black people that's usually on there. And she's like, well, she's from North Carolina. It's hard for me to watch that. And she was a young girl. It's hard for me to watch how even that was perpetrating the things that I particularly fight against. Her sister was half dressed. I mean, showing belly and gut and butt and all this other stuff, and have the thing on the head, and the language, and then her friend. And it's like, so can I blame, or do I want to educate the masses, or even those people in my circle? That ain't like, that's not who so it's like when I show up, it's like, oh, what, who are you? And that's just hard. It's just hard. So that was last night. That was the new show last night. So it's a constant battle, a level of ignorance that we don't understand, that when we're participating, we're perpetuating. Okay. And then the other part is we still have a limited, if any, I mean, we just don't have enough control to be impactful in our own community. So it's like the chicken and the egg. What do we do? So I can't wait for the rest of you to give some answers,
because you gave one there, because you pretty much ended the show. That's exactly a big portion of where I'm going, and I'm still gonna go there. But how easy is it for someone to just be corrupted, for lack of a better word? You can go in with the best integrity and ideas, and then they say, well, we need you to do this thing over here. We know it don't look good for you, but we're gonna pay you a lot of money. And if you say, like you said, that was one of the arguments from some of these voice actors on this new Good Times show. If they said no, somebody else will say yeah. But there's still something worth fighting for inside of that, and that's what I'm here to kind of unpack. And that's also, what I focus on in my academic work. Speaking of academia, Ajane, coming to you next. What are your thoughts? Where has the Black image been, and where is it going?
I don't know if that was a shot, because I'm always the brain, never the cool kid, but it's okay. As long as
I said we academics. That was a transition. That was a great transition.
Okay, I get a pass. So I want to preface what I'm saying, because I'm going to speak on a couple of categories by saying this. First of all, question we need to be asking ourselves: are we aware as a collective of the problems that exist in our representation? During the 20th century, we see things on the historical record that openly prove that as a community, we are fighting against X, Y, and Z images. Do we have that sort of centralized stream of thought, centralized problematization of the ways that we're being portrayed? I don't know if we do. The second thing I'm going to say is that the points I'm getting ready to make, I want to stress one thing. We have nothing to prove to our oppressors. They already genuinely know who we are, which is why they're perpetuating images that are false. We have nothing to prove to them. The reason why we should be focused on our image is because we know who God made us. So that any type of solutions that come about to the Black image should be for our community, not to prove anything to our oppressor, because once we start playing that game, they already have us. So I want to talk in a couple of categories. One of the most recent, with the 1864 shenanigans law that's going on in Arizona. In terms of medical, the Black image is still holding up a stereotype that Black women are the face of shame because we're the face of abortion. The numbers don't prove that. The numbers don't prove that. But we've been co-opted as an image of shame so that our oppressor can use us to ignite groups of people that are anti-abortion, etc. And it's blowing back on us in multiple ways. The numbers do not prove that Black women are the face of abortion. Stop letting our politicians co-opt our image. In terms of school, criminalization of Black teachers, what they're teaching, over-policing of their image, over-policing of their interactions with Black students. And of course, the school-to-prison pipeline is still intact. The situation that happened today on the news, the white teacher that was shot and a Black administrator that is now being prosecuted because of that, regardless of what the criminal ruling is going to be, notice what they're saying about this Black administrator in comments, etc. So that's school. From school, I'll go to media. They're putting celebrity voices over scholars in every single aspect. The Black mind has been co-opted and reduced to entertainment. And I will say that even Black entertainers have been reduced, because Black entertainers have a history of being well-rounded, intelligent, well-read people who are Renaissance people who can write books, but they just so happen to act because they have so much inside of them that they want to give out. That has been reduced. That has been reduced. And so they're reducing the Black genius of celebrities. They're wiping away the presence of scholars. We only really hear certain legal scholars on the news. We never have Black people who are doctors of any kind in the public face talking about any issue. They would rather have people that are unqualified but fit a bill of a Black image talking about an issue that they haven't studied. So we've been reduced to that, personality over intellect, and that's been co-opted. In terms of criminality, they prop up this image of Black people who are talking about the oppression that Black people face as victims. And then on the flip side of that, we are the face of criminality. Black men are still dehumanized as the face of criminality when the numbers on pedophilia don't prove that, when the numbers on school shooters don't prove that. But somehow Black men have become the face of shame for all of those things. In terms of music, we have been Black musicians historically, again, just like other Black entertainers, Black musicians during the antebellum South were freedom dreamers. They were people who were genius. They were well-read. They had networks of people. They were some of the first people to earn their freedom based on the Black genius that they had. They could speak multiple languages, music being one of them. Our Black musicians have been reduced to criminality when they don't have a history of that. Black musicians have a history of being Renaissance people, just like Black entertainers. That has been reduced. Finally, in terms of environmental, Black people are now being propped up as the group of people in America that are not outdoorsy, when we preserve some of the nation's largest parks. And we push for that legislation. Now we're being told that Black children need to be more active and this and that and all of these things, which is a lie. Our land has been stolen. The face of the Black cowboy has been erased. The face of land ownership has been erased as a Black face. And also in Black communities, we have been reduced. Our images have been reduced to living in poverty and dilapidation, when really the city and the state won't allow us to fix our own communities. If we do, we can get community fines. And moreover, our public housing that we live in is not dilapidated because we don't take care of it. It's dilapidated because our tax dollars are being funneled and stifled. Because of another reason, Black people have been propped up as a non-tax paying, but a government handout receiving group, when the numbers don't show that either. We're bearing the burden of taxes in this country. And finally, I would say overall, we have been propped up as underqualified and unuseful only in regards of certain categories like pushing sexuality, etc. Most of those categories still are not far removed from stereotypes we had to navigate on a plantation. And finally, I will circle back to my question. Are we aware as a collective of some of the problems that our image is taking? Certain populations of us celebrate certain things while the others go against. And our image is being co-opted. When they do show bad things, it's being co-opted. When they do show good things, it's being co-opted. And so the last question I ask to the audience is, what images are important to the Black people that are in spaces to produce Black images? Because that's a problem as well.
Well, I'm going to say, church say amen. Appreciate you. That was some really insightful, good stuff that I definitely didn't expect anything less. The control and the lack of it is just key in at the core of so much of what we're discussing. Yeah, and then there's the tool usage. What do we want people to think about this certain segment of our population? We'll let media tell them. We'll let that be framed, and then we'll prop up, as you stated, people who are entertainers, as Malcolm said, and I've repeated, and I've probably played that clip here. What other group is represented by entertainers? And he said it's like 63. I mean, good God, when we gonna do something? So Celeste, coming to you next, and as you can already tell, it's one question in, and we almost at the halfway point. So I'm gonna get to this next question because it's a good one, and it's gonna circle back to what Lisa shared already. So Celeste, coming to you, mascots of shame. Where has the Black image been, and where is it going?
This is it's a weird question only because Black people's image has never been defined by Black people. The image of Black people has never had the input of Black people. When you think about the mainstream Black characters of the 40s and 50s, I guess the 3 Black people who could get on TV, they were all in servant roles. I can't think of her name right now, but a taller, dark-skinned woman played a housekeeper on a predominantly white show. And then you get to Good Times and the Cosbys. And I grew up in the early 2000s era. So I got Sister Sister, That's So Raven, One on One, Living Single, even though it was reruns from the 90s. And also, I'm the first generation to grow up with the raunchy Black reality TV. And it's funny, but it's not funny in the same breath. But when Black people were given the opportunity to put ourselves on TV, produce the show, and I guess decide the flow of the show, you got Flavor of Love. You got For the Love of Ray J. You got New York developing from Flavor of Love. You get, the Love and Hip Hop series. And these shows are not Black people depicting themselves in, I guess, what would be the quote unquote honorable way, especially if we go to the table with our aunties that are over the age of 60 and you talk about how you're supposed to carry yourself. I mean, the VH1 reality TV shows that featured all Black cast, you get Love and Hop Atlanta, Love and Hop New York, you get Chrissy, what's her name? Chrissy beat up Kimbella. I forgot whose girlfriend wife she is. You get the Brawl with Jocelyn and Stevie, where they allegedly did cocaine backstage, came out front, and then beat everybody on the cast up. And these were the mainstream depictions of Black people. But we can't just blame white people for that because the shows had all Black producers. And it comes down to one of those things of, you have the depictions of us by white people, but then when Black people get into that era, you have a show of producers, kind of what you said, where if I don't say yes to it, somebody else will, and it's going to get produced anyway. The shows had Black producers, but they were funded by the white studios. So Black people have never had control of their image. They've never had control of the depiction of what we will look like as a people, as a society, as a sub-society in a larger mainstream society. It's always been chosen and depicted by other people. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to offend nobody, and somebody's probably gonna get offended because they probably love him more than words, but Tyler Perry. Even when in Tyler Perry's own productions, he funds his own productions. He is the producer. He owns his own studio now. And he tries, but he could make a stronger message if he wanted to. But I cannot down him because in his character, you have in his characters, you have Black women who are attorneys, doctors, authors, who have jobs that they probably wouldn't have had it have been done in a white studio by white producers who had never stepped foot in a Black community. It's one of those off-putting things where the image of Black people, well, I want to preface my statement with this. You also shouldn't let what you see on TV and who you see on TV let you decide how you feel about an entire group of people. That's a immature mindset and standing all in one breath on its own. But we know that there are people out there who will never leave their small community. And so the only depiction of a group of people they will have is off of TV. But Black people should have the same access to the movie studios, to the casting, to the producing, to depict these Black women in these strong roles. Like Tyler Perry has all these women in these strong roles. Now let's get them on let's get them on a TV show on a streaming service that gets that mainstream recognition, like Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy has Miranda Bailey. She's chief of surgery. Miranda Bailey is tough. She walks around with her head up, her chest puffed out, but she was one of 2 Black women on the show for almost 15 years. And Miranda Bailey was not, quote unquote, a main character in that every episode there was a storyline centered around her. And also, Miranda Bailey has wins, but Miranda Bailey has struggles. And you have
correct me, Celeste, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't remember. Isn't the creator of Grey's Anatomy Black
yes,
woman? Okay.
Shonda Rhimes, she has TGIT. Thank God it's Thursday. Well, that used to be her thing. And that was when you had Viola Davis as Annalise Keating, and you had Olivia Pope for Scandal. You had Grey's Anatomy, but it was Meredith Grey. It was headed by a white woman, as well as you had I forgot the other show, but it was also a white woman was the main character. And Shonda Rhimes has Black women in powerful positions and these TV shows, yet their lives are still hooked on, catered to, and centered around a white community, a white life. They're not able to live their best Black life in an independent fashion where at some point it doesn't cater to some stereotype about a Black woman. So Black people need access to that, but when we also get access to that, we're going to have to take advantage of it in a way that hasn't been done before. Black people that are in those positions to say yes, it's very much what you said, because they know that somebody else is waiting for that opportunity and is sitting there to say yes, they will somewhat play into the hands of whatever stereotype they need to keep their show running. Like Olivia Pope on Scandal was an amazing Black woman, an amazing character. Olivia Pope, I don't believe, dated one Black man during that entire series and played into every negative stereotype about a relationship between a Black woman and a white man. Like when I say played into every negative stereotype, it was a little bit appalling, especially from Shonda. But that's a consistent knock against her. Her Black characters play into negative stereotypes with their relationships with the opposite sex. Some of them same-sex couples, but playing into different stereotypes regarding relationships with people of different races.
Nah, I just gave up on Scandal because I couldn't stand to hear the lisp talk. It was a lisp that yeah, I don't know what that lisp thing was about. I couldn't do it. But the thing that I think is at the core again is that lack of control, but it's also this conditioning of society to only receive the Black image a certain way. There's a usefulness to this ascribed fixed image. It's generally 2 dimensions at most, and you don't get any relentless humanization of the Black image. Now, with all of that in mind, if you just had everyone at some point in our society understood, as we hoped would happen after slavery, to be human beings, then maybe we wouldn't need this work if we had disrupted the notion of race. But instead, we propped it up and gave it new life in many different ways and shapes and forms, including Jim Crow and Black codes and everything that said these people are different, they're others. And that bled over into entertainment. It bled over into how we portrayed in cinema and in all forms of media. And that's what we're dealing with, a conditioning. It is understood that if you make characters, even if you're Black and you're in control, you're going to get more attention if you sustain this stereotypical portrayal of them, as opposed to disrupting that narrative. I got to get to this next question, but I love y'all. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. This goes back to some of what Lisa kind of already mentioned during our unpacking of where the Black image has been questioned. So this also goes into what I think is being mentioned from all of us as we talk. The question is, does being a Black artist mean you have to forego respecting yourself, your people, and the legacy of them. So what is that is transpiring when we see the excuse so many times become about the artistry, or as we've already uplifted, that somebody else will do it? Where's that compromise coming from? And does it only exist because you're adhering to this artistry notion? I say that because I was paying attention to Billy D. Williams on Bill Maher's show, where he was being supportive of blackface, in his career, and he was thinking back to Laurence Olivier portraying Othello, and he was laughing and making jokes about the caricature of black people that he thinks Olivier was adhering to. But Lisa, you brought up Cicely Tyson. That's a contemporary of his basically, and she spoke with a level of respectability that I think is highly important based on what I know of that book. But he's coming out with a memoir now, and here he is yucking it up, talking about blackface is okay. You're an artist. You're just an artist. You're an actor. You can do what you want to do. So does being a black artist mean you have to forego respecting your people, yourself, and the legacy of your people? Lisa, chime in.
Man, listen, whatever you're comfortable sleeping at night with, but I don't think people sleep at night. What I'm trying to teach to people is, what do you value, right? And everybody that want to get with me doesn't mean I have to get with them. So one thing I celebrate with having just read that Cicely Tyson, or finished that Cicely Tyson book, was that she decided what she wanted to do, and she was willing to make the sacrifices. I think too often people are not willing to make sacrifices. So whether it's entertainment, I think entertainment has a broader stage because it goes so far and wide, but opportunities make you more of who you are. And again, I'm a chicken and egg person. Okay. Have we lost our way as a people? Like, okay, get somebody else, because I'm about what matters to me. So if it's for me, it's for me. But you're going to get your opportunity if you stand on your values. Like some people who knew a sacrifice I recently made to support my family, right? It's like, wow, what? But then I had to say, because it was a big opportunity somebody brought to me, and I said, well, no, I got to go do this. And they were like, somebody said, well, I bet you they probably want you more. And actually they did. They said, okay, we're going to go ahead and put your name on here, and we're going to wait till you get back. We're going to wait till you're done. I don't understand why we don't why we as a culture, as a people, do not understand. People are not going to value you if you don't value yourself. And if you don't keep standing on the principles, then people just going to run all over you. So you can have a bag for 5 minutes and then throw the whole thing will go up in smoke.
Great answer. I think the respect part begins with self, as we've covered in this space in different facets. But yeah, Lisa, if you keep finding if they keep finding the person that's willing to carry forth the stereotype and joke and be the buffoon, then they'll never run out. So until it's understood that you normalize your availability based on the product that they're designed to put out, they're gonna remain able to tap into somebody else when they might need to take that option off the table. We might need to just do better. Ajane, coming to you next. Does being a black artist mean you have to forego respecting yourself, your people, and your legacy?
I think, first of all, Lisa, that was a word from the Lord, for the people of the Lord. So I appreciate that prophecy. Everything that that you want is coming, especially if you want it the right way. So I receive that. I will say a few things. First, there are always two systems and two lifestyles out there. If you want, first of all, based on you and Lisa's conversation, I wrote down something. We have been taught to value ourselves, but we've been taught to value ourselves as a commodity, as something that can be engineered to be a tool used by the oppressor as long as we get what we think is worth getting. And that doesn't track with the masses of Black people who chose, I can't live like that, but it does track with Black elite. And that's something that Felton, you and I frequently talk about. Madison, Rebecca, my whole comrade circle talks about that. We are now closely associated with Black elite, but many of us don't embrace that. So what do you value yourself as? Black people have always been valued in a capitalist system as a commodity and not a person. And so when you commodify and co-opt your values to value things that your oppressor perpetuated or designated as important, you have lost yourself. And so if you want to operate within that system, and if you want the world to hear you, then you will be compromised because you want to play into something that was not designed for your participation. And I mean that very cautiously because I do not mean in any way, y'all know the folks love sound bites. So let me seal it up for now and later. I do not mean that Black people do not belong in all spaces. I mean, we don't belong in all spaces. So I mean that very, very transversely. There are some places that we shouldn't be, not because we can't do it well, but because of who's there and why they want us there. So make your own. So what do we value ourselves as? We will always be compromised when we have learned to idolize our oppressor. When we think our oppressor does every aspect of life better than us, you have made your oppressor an idol because you secretly want to live like them. You secretly want what they have deemed as value. And so we need to return back to the spiritual drawing board, and we need to be focused on keeping our soul instead of gaining the world, because we live in a world within the world. It's okay for us to take care of home and to be who we are in our community, and then to leave and go out and participate in larger society. But you don't know what you're participating in doing if you haven't taken care of home. And that's inside and in your community. And so my question to the folks is, when it comes down to compromising, if you're going to make everything requires sacrifice. So if you're going to make the sacrifice and sacrifice your own righteousness, you may as well have made the sacrifice and sacrifice your wickedness, because you're going to make the sacrifice either way. And so I think a part of us has to learn how to value what we have. And this post-desegregation, so-called desegregated integration, equity, etc., all of that, where our image has been co-opted, our question is, do we still value what we have that is genuine? Or do we want what we have that is genuine to look like that of our people who oppress us? Because that in itself is self-hatred, and you will always be compromised when you hate self and when you've been taught to hate your own people. And you hate God, frankly.
So I'm going to give you a preview of the last question, Ajane, because I want you to gather your thoughts because you mentioned oppressor a number of times. So the last question is going to be, is anyone to blame? That's for you right now. I'm still on this other question, but I want you to be thinking on that, because I'm going to go back around and get that really quickly because we're getting close to time. Bob, I'm coming to you next, man.
So
you got the question. Go ahead, go for it.
You want me to answer you?
Yeah, exactly. Answer the first question.
So first of all of the comments here have been wonderful. The most meaningful or the most significant comments, I think, or thoughts are Ajane talked about, and I'm not exactly sure how she said it, but the mission of Black image should be for Black people, not for the white people, not for the oppressors. It should be, what do we want for ourselves? And not because we want to be selfish, but because Black people need to feel the confidence and the strength to be who they are to be in a world that's not controlled by white people, and to pursue success or to pursue a place in our world as has been defined by white people is absolutely the wrong direction. White people have a lot to learn from Black people. Black people have a lot to give to this world that white people keep them from giving. And it's not about entertainment. It's not about celebrity. It's about values. It's about compassion. It's about love. It's about caring. It's about kindness. It's about transparency. It's about legitimacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so who's wagging the tail? Is it the dog or is it somebody else? And so, you know, I feel like sometimes that a lot of this comes from a feeling of, I want my freedom and I want to express my freedom the way I can express it. And it's like there's not been freedom granted until freedom is, I just want to be free. And so whatever it is I want to do, outrageous or otherwise, celebrity or otherwise, I just want to show I'm free. That's one thing. The other is we have so much of this Black people success that's success for them, not success for the community, not success for the rest of the world, not where we have success and then we model or we share or we show or we mentor, but we constrain, we control, we constrain. And so, you know, but again, I think that's all about figuring out how to play the system for our capitalist, selfish world, for each of us to get what we want. You know, each of us need to extract ourselves from the culture that we are in and value what we come to value good values and stand for those things and represent those things and mentor for those things. Why is it that we allow others to dictate? Celeste, I think, made the point. Black people have never had the privilege of defining who they are to be. The image of Black people has always been in the control of other people. Take it back. Just take it back. And that may mean we stand for our values. We don't stand for our financial opportunities.
That's a good way to end that statement. That's the thing. There's too much profit in not being the controller. There's too much profit in actually being the controller who gets to control it in a way that means that you still seek profit. It's a funny game. That's why I mentioned Michaud in the chat. Michaud was attempting to do that, but where's the support for someone like Oscar Michaud? Where's the support and the continuation of that type of thing that maybe gets to exist if Gordon Parks' son doesn't die in a helicopter crash? Because that was one opportunity that was missed. But there's a lot to unpack in that dynamic. Okay, we're running low on time, but I want to get you two guys, Celeste and Jay Dwayne, to answer this question. And Be thinking everyone is anyone to blame. That's going to be a short answer. I'm going to go back around and get that from everybody. It's going to be a short answer. It's going to be a short answer. It's going to be a short answer. Is anyone to blame? So be thinking about that. So let's come to you next. Does being a Black artist mean you have to forego respecting yourself, your people, and legacy?
So I'm gonna give you both answers to those questions. No, you don't have to forego respect for yourself, but you won't make it if you do. In a lot of cases, like people always talk about actors, actresses, and we're thinking mainstream. We think of like Will Smith, Chris Rock, XYZ. There are millions of wonderful actors and actresses that are Black, African American, African descent, Afro Latina, all the different colors, all the different shades. But if you aren't willing to do what needs to be done to make it mainstream, you just aren't going to make it. And that's the reality of what it is. You can have morals and respect for yourself, but you're not going to get there. And part of it is because that image of Black people does need to be out there. Quick note, there was a book done about psychology about Hitler, his rise to power in Nazi Germany, and it talks about the psychology of government. The psychology of most capitalist societies, whether it ends up being a totalitarian style of government, a republic, which is what we're said to be, but you know, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and the Morgans bought a president in William McKinley, and then made Teddy Roosevelt the vice president in an attempt to get him to shut up, because that's how big of an influence big business had on government at that time. But even prior to that, going back to them starting their businesses during slavery and, you know, Civil War, post-slavery, in the era of Reconstruction. And a government like that, you need somebody to look down on. That is how people like Hitler come to power. They give you one ethnic group, one nationality, one group of people who was a little bit different to focus on, and they consistently and constantly harp on that group, and then they begin to build their government, because instead of focusing on what they're doing and what they're not doing right and all of that, you're focused on how this one group of people is ruining your system, ruining your society, making you poor. I'm poor because the Hispanic man down the street doesn't go to work like me. I can say this with confidence, and anybody who watches this, any of my friends who want to disagree with me, I have not met a Hispanic man yet who is not working to take care of his family. I can walk across my apartment complex to a man who has 8 children. He goes to work. I don't want to hear anything about how he is a lazy Hispanic man. I don't want to hear that. No. But that is the group that society is being told to focus on, because they're now the robber barons of immigration. No, America has a lot of stuff that we need to be looking at, but we're not going to talk about that. In the early 1900s, late 1800s, it was the Negroes from down south are lazy and don't want to work, even though they just escaped. Well, they didn't even escape. They were just freed from slavery, free labor, working 12 hours a day from sunup to sundown in a field and building the southern economy of America. But, you know, that's the lazy group who doesn't actually do any work.
The whole economy.
But, you know, when you put these images out there of who we are as a people and how we do things, it gives people something to look at and put their attentions to, not paying attention to the government that's actually doing them wrong, not taking care of them, failing them. But I'm going to go in the late 1800s, late 1900s, I'm going to go blame the Black person. Oh, she's a baby mama. She has 6 kids. Well, sweetheart, in slavery, she was forced to have all 6 to 8 of those children. It wasn't a choice that was left up to her. And then the lack of health care in Black communities up until this day is the reason that she has children. But, you know, I'm going to look at her and blame her and not look at the government and how at one point in time, J.P. Morgan was the Federal Reserve. I'm going to look at it and not talk about how at one point in time, Rockefeller bought 2 presidents because he didn't want to hear the progressive ideals that were going to break up Standard Oil. These images are used to keep control of society as a whole. As long as they have somebody to blame for something, nobody's ever going to look at it and have an in-depth analysis of our government and how it consistently fails people. Yeah. Now, y'all, I might come up missing in 2 weeks if this thing goes on YouTube.
Don't announce that on here. We don't want that. But give me the answer to the last question so we can keep it moving. Is anyone to blame?
Absolutely.
Okay.
White society has always needed somebody to blame, to not keep people focused on the society that was failing them. Poor white people have been the equivalent to Black people from the dawn of America, but they feel a little bit better about themselves because we're made to look like animals, to look like we can't make informed decisions, to look like we are constantly and consistently beneath them. Baby, if you were working in Carnegie's steel plant in the late 1800s, you got treated like a slave too. You worked 15 hours a day. Half of y'all got blown to pieces.
You got paper. You got paid.
No.
Right, Celeste, come on now.
No, they were making 60 cents a day. No, of course they did get paid. Slaves didn't get paid.
Exactly.
But you were this much better than a Black slave. You were not. Them rich white people looked at you in the same bracket. Y'all were in the same bracket of irrelevance.
I got you. Appreciate that. Weighty. Give me something to think about. Jay Dwayne, coming to you and give me the answer to both questions if you can. We in overtime. So does being a Black artist mean you have to forego respecting yourself and your people and legacy? And is anyone to blame?
I just want to just clarify, because we are talking about entertainment. The Black entertainment experience was also connected to survival. And I don't want us to ever forget that. So when we start talking about things like blackface, that also is a survival tactic, which explains why we have people who bojangle very much to this day. So there is a system that was created. When we talk about a who, let's be honest, we're so far down, we can't put a finger on who, but we can put a finger on a system that has worked the way it was supposed to work. It's not broken. That system is a perfect system and it still works today. With those experiences of the Black entertainment experience, how it also served as an education component, and it also served as a buffer of protection, meaning they bojangled so their children could live another day, their communities could live another day. Let us not get so arrogant in our comfortable experiences, because a lot of them paved the way for us to say, I won't do that. Because they had to do that in order for us to have an example to say, I won't do that. So did our ancestors who did a little bit more to sell themselves, quote unquote, to the devil work? Yes, because we are all able to look back at those experiences to have a reference point to say, I can't do that. So I want us to know that a lot of the Black entertainers all paved the way, all was activists in their way. Some may had to do it on their back, and we can't look at it negatively now because they did what they needed to do to survive, and we understand survival. One of the things all Blacks experience is oppression. Now, how that oppression manifests in our lives are so unique, and we develop armor in our walk based on how we need to survive. And sometimes our survival may look different than the other one. And we just want to make sure we're not saying, okay, my survival, that struggle Olympics, my survival was worse than yours, or you didn't have to do this. Because I can tell you as a Black man, just like Bob said, they're not ready to talk about the Black man experience yet. We still ain't had time to talk about that, where it's almost laughable when they talk about the things that we go through. That's why it is a good conversation about the Diddy experience. I'm not talking about what he did. It is a good conversation to have, because you don't realize how many Black men are propositioned and how we devalue the experiences that Black men go through because of the entertainment reference that has been casted in so many different areas. So are we benefiting from a lot of the things, even the dirty work that our ancestors did? Yes, because we're here to see it, to gather that information. And now for the next generation, they're going to look back and say, I won't do what Felton did. I won't be on the internet talking about that, but they will come up with something else. All of us are going to be judged for something that we're doing, but it's all built on the legacy of those who went before us. That's all. Whether it's a knee or back, somebody had to pave the way for us.
Oh, well stated. And I want to say something really quickly because we're up against time. And I'm coming to Bob, I'm coming to Lisa, and I'm coming to Aj lastly to get that is anyone to blame question asked. Jay Dwayne, survival is at the core of so much of the Black American experience. One thing I want to say as far as the entertainment bridge that we're connecting to that survival, a lot of Black folks early on were adamant about more positive depictions and realistic depictions of Black American life. William Monroe Trotter among them protested the birth of a nation in its opening. It was not always about, making that concession to survive in entertainment. There were people who were loudly against some of those depictions and some of those ways that we kind of made it into media as we know it. But I understand your overarching point, and I appreciate it. It's a good observation. Something I wanted to interject when Celeste was talking. We put a lot of energy into rectifying certain issues around the Me Too movement in Hollywood. We have not done that when it comes to depictions of Black Americans. That's another piece of my puzzle. Ajane, give me that is anyone to blame answer.
Well,
Quickly.
I think that Dr. Foushee, I think that as we continue to fight and recognize the system, I do think that we have internal work. When the folks come in to try to destroy, and they will come in and try to destroy without being solicited, make sure you're not a weapon for the wrong reason. Some of the most disgusting things that have been done to our community was done because someone tried to survive in the wrong way. You wanted your flesh to survive, and you killed your soul, and you killed other communities. And so I'll say that they will come in, but when they do,
the weapon of the tool
over profit.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate that. When you say weapon, it's interchangeable with tool to a degree. The weapon or the tool, which one do you want to be? I like that. I appreciate that observation. Lisa, you get to say the last things that we're going to hear tonight in this space. So is anyone to blame?
Oh, I wanted to drop the mic on what Ajane said, but I will say that we all have some responsibility and culpability. What are you willing to stand for? So thank you. Great show.
And thank you. And I will say, I definitely get to say the last words. I was going to say there's plenty of blame to go around. That's the way there's plenty of it to go around. I greatly appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. Bob, did I get you for the anyone to blame question? Bob, is there any?
No, but my answer, I completely agree with Jay Dwayne. We have to forgive the survival issue. We have to. People who have done what they've done for survival, of course, they have to do what they have to do. But then the answer is we.
All right. The point is, when we get to that recognition of our shared humanity, I believe we get much further. But that's going to take some Herculean lifting. Appreciate you all. Have a wonderful night. Y'all take great care. Appreciate you. Y'all don't know. I'm going to have to revisit this one. This was a good one. Y'all take care. Have a good night.